But today, I'm going to show you a really simple pasta recipe. Is you get the pasta onto boil, and while the pasta is cooking, in the time that it takes to make the pasta, you make the sauce, and which means 10 minutes or so. Now that's a pretty quick dinner. So what I like to do for this style of thing is to make this corn sauce, and it uses fresh corn, and it sort of takes the southern creamed corn approach. We're here in the South, so I thought that that would be appropriate. Traditional southern style creamed corn actually doesn't have cream in it. All right, it might have some butter in it, but the cream isn't cream. The creamed means that it's turned into a creamy texture, and the way that they do it is it's all in here. It's all in the corn. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the corn kernels, and one of the corn cobs, I'm going to cut the kernels off, and the other corn cob, I'm going to grate it, and we're going to end up with the pulp and the what's called the corn milk from the inside, and it's, you know, it's vegan milk, so how could you go wrong, right? So first, the cutting of the corn. You guys have a problem cutting corn where it goes flying everywhere, right? Like you're cutting the kernels off and they go flying everywhere. They end up everywhere but in your bowl or on your plate or in your pan. So there's one really easy way to get past that, which is to first cut the corn in half. And then it's shorter. So all those little corn kernels that are coming off don't have as far to fall. So they don't go everywhere. So first I'm just going to cut the corn, and then now you just take your knife and you just come down the edges. And for this, I think what you want to make sure you don't do is go so close to the corn cob that you get kind of all of that, all of the really tough parts of the kernel that are right up next to the cob. So just, you know, don't be too aggressive about it, but it's super easy, and you can see it's not flying nearly as far as it would fly if I were doing the whole, if I hadn't cut it in half first. So we've got that, and then with the other cob, I'm going to keep these two things separate. So I'm going to keep the kernels in a little bowl, and when you eat this, when you get the samples here in a minute, you may find some of the corn silk in your sample. Now, getting the corn silk, you know, when you're husking corn, getting the silk off the corn is one of the hardest things, it seems. What I do is I run it under water and I take like a brush, and I brush to get the silks off, and then I use my hands. But I also sort of think of it a little bit like whenever you find a bug in produce that you get, it's like it's almost a good thing. A bug in produce means that it was organic, so you can be assured that it was organic. Now, it's better to find a bug than it is to find half a bug. Because if you find half a bug, it means that you might have eaten half a bug, right? But if you find a bug, it just means that they didn't spray it, that something lived on that food, which is what we want, right? We want food that things can live on. And with the corn silks, if I ever find a little bit of corn silk in a dish, I always think, well, at least I know that the cook actually used corn that was on the cob, that had the whole husk on it, and at least they were cooking from scratch, and they weren't like opening some big frozen package or, God forbid, can. So that's one of the cobs I pulled off the kernels, and the other one, I'm going to use this box grater, and I'm going to use the coarse side of the grater, and I'm going to take my other cob, and I'm just going to run it along the sides of this grater. Now, if you could see inside this right now, if this were such a fancy setup that there was a mirror and all that set up above me, you'd see that I was getting a decent amount of liquid in here. Some liquid is even coming onto my cutting board. And basically what it's doing is it's not taking each kernel off, it's pulling all that pulp out. And this is basically the sauce. So that's that. And this can go in my other bowl. Got this nifty grater that has a bottom to it.
I'm getting one of those.
And you can see that it's all wet, much wetter than the kernels from the corn that are separate. So those are the two basic elements of my sauce. So when that's hot, basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I do when I start cooking almost anything, which is I'm going to saute some garlic and onion and olive oil. Is that how you guys start a lot of dishes? A little olive oil in the pan, right? I'm not going to call it that horrible nickname that Rachel Ray always says. I'm going to call it olive oil because I'm able to pronounce all the syllables without needing a shortcut. And as soon as, I usually tell people to wait for the oil to shimmer, because you want the oil, you want the pan to be hot and you want the oil to be hot. I mean, you want the pan to be hot and then you want the oil in the pan to be hot before you put the food in. So once that happens, I get my onions. That's about a half an onion chopped up, clove or two of garlic. And I will now proceed to create one of the most beautiful smells on the planet, besides the baking of chocolate chip cookies or bread, is garlic and onion and olive oil. Do you smell it yet? Alright. So while that's cooking for a minute there, you basically want to get that until the olive oil and the garlic are translucent. So while that's cooking, I'm going to make myself a little bit of room here. And I am going to chiffonade my basil. You know chiffonade? Anybody? You don't count. Yeah, so what you do is you take a leafy vegetable or a leafy green like basil and you stack the leaves on top of each other and you roll them up like they're a cigar. And then when you thinly slice it, oh, this is so messy over here. All this corn on my cutting board. Okay. You know the nice thing about vegetarian and vegan cooking too is that it doesn't really matter what's on your cutting board.
Yes, it ain't.
You know, isn't that nice? There's no like decontamination, there's no cross-contamination, not like with chicken or anything. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to thinly slice. I'm going to try not to cut myself in front of all of you. And, you know, and then when you do it that way, you get these nice little ribbons of garlic. So that's a really great thing for you guys to know. Then that works with anything big and leafy. Spinach, kale. I do it with kale. I like to make a raw kale salad. Do you guys like kale? Do you guys massage your kale? You know about the massage? You guys are pros back there. What a great on a curve. So if you want to make a raw kale salad and you find kale to be kind of tough, just chiffonade it like I was just showing you. Strip it off the stems, stack it, thinly slice it, put it in a big bowl, grab it by the handful, and it's almost like you're kneading bread. You grab it and squeeze, grab it and squeeze, and what happens is the kale, in just about 4 or 5 minutes, turns darker green and really silky. So it's a really nice way to eat a kale salad. And then you can do like a kale Caesar, a lot of people are doing. I do a kale and mango salad I like a lot. So anyway, these onions are browning a tiny bit and getting a little tender. So you're not going to believe how fast this is. So first I take the raw corn, the whole corn kernels, and these go in, and they're just going to stir fry for a minute or two, and they'll turn brighter yellow. You know, in the summertime when the corn is really at its peak, you barely need to cook it. I mean, a lot of people I love raw corn if it's, you know, fresh, in season, freshly picked, just shucked, just silked corn. And while that's cooking, I'll tell you another fun thing to do with corn, which is I love not wasting things. I really try not to waste things. And I was telling you about veggie stock recipes I have coming in the post next week. Well, one that's already there that I did a couple years ago was for corn broth. And what you do is you take these, I don't have them here, but you also take the husks, and you even put in the silks. Husks, silks, cobs, in a big pot, cover them with water, cook them for 20 minutes or so, and strain it out, and you've got this like really lovely light corn flavored broth that's great for like a corn risotto or a corn soup, or you can freeze it in ice cream trays and just use it as a little sauce here and there, throw it in sauce, it's delicious. So this is already pretty much done. I'm going to turn it down a tiny bit. Good old cast iron heats up. And then this is the corn pulp and the corn milk that I grated out. And so that's going to go in. And this doesn't even need to cook at all, really. So I'm going to actually turn the heat off because you don't want to ruin that fresh corn flavor. I would like to turn the heat, there we go. And so just the residual heat of the pan is enough. And it creates this gorgeous light yellow, obviously, kind of sauce. And then all you're doing is pretend that this pasta just came out of the water. Oh, here we are. Oh, pulling it out. Oh, draining, straining. So the pasta, cooked pasta, al dente, you know, it's not soft. You leave it a little tiny bit underdone. And with it, in something like this, you might even want to leave it more underdone because it could cook a little bit more in the sauce. So this is going to go in. Stir that in. And then, you know, my secret weapon, and the secret weapon of a lot of Italian cooks, if anybody watches like Lydia Bastianich, you'll know what I'm doing here. What's that? That's the pasta water. So it's the starchy, tiny bit salty water that I cook the pasta in, and that's something that you can use to loosen up the sauce of any pasta dish that you're making. And it's better than water because it'll get it a little creamier, especially if you're not using any animal products, because of the starch that's left in there from boiling the pasta. So there's that, and I wish we had a mirror so you guys could see this. Anybody know what this might be? Nooch. Nutritional yeast.
What is it?
Do you guys know nutritional yeast? So it's deactivated yeast flakes that are really popular in vegan cooking because they're a little nutty, they're a little cheesy really. So they're a good substitute. In any recipe that you see that calls for Parmesan cheese and you want to make it vegan and that's the only thing, try using nutritional yeast instead. It has some B vitamins in it, which is also helpful for vegans. And it's really good. Some people make Parmesan substitute that blends nutritional yeast and raw cashews, which is also nice. Just put the two in your food processor, add a little salt to taste, and have that around to use instead of Parmesan. I actually like it fine just on its own. So this will go in.
Is any kind of yeast?
No, it's nutritional yeast, so it's deactivated yeast. It'll be labeled this way. Don't just get like a big bag of bread yeast. Because that's not what you want. It doesn't have any flavor,
so this is
and I don't even know what that would do with it. But this is called nutritional yeast, or yeast flakes. Sometimes you phosphorate milk, makes it nice, what a lot of people do. And then the other thing that goes in is my fresh basil. So that just kind of is going to add a nice little herby flavor, obviously, and summertime. And that is my dish. So that's pasta with a fresh corn sauce. And I'm making a whole bowl of it for myself, and I'm going to torch you and just eat it right here in front of you because that's just how I roll. No, you're going to, my Linnell and my fabulous helpers in the back are maybe working on that right now.
Yeah.